It's one of the more unusual releases we've been seeing on the trail scene lately, and I thought I'd take a couple minutes to just walk you through what that shoe is all about. It's the Adidas Terrex Agravic Ultra. Now, that shoe is a little bit more inspired by a lot of the road marathoning technology we're starting to see. So it is a shoe that features an increased rocker in the front and also thermoplastic plate to stiffen up the ride. The whole idea behind the stiffness of those kind of shoes, if you look at shoes like the Agravic Ultra, the Brooks Catamount, stuff like the North Face Vective line, is to reduce foot fatigue on really long distances. You can't have the same really soft foam because it ends up being very, very unstable, but you can definitely make the ride more efficient by increasing the support to the foot. The Agravic Ultra is a new shoe from last year, so it released in the spring. It won an ISPO award over in Europe in the spring, and then it landed in North America in the fall 2021. We are now seeing full allocation in the men's color, and then the women's line should arrive very soon. But it's a classic Adidas shoe in many ways. So you will have a blend of the newer foams that Adidas is using. So Light Strike, which is that kind of green part here, which is a pretty firm, stiff foam that's very responsive but not very bouncy. And then the Ultra features also two pods of boost, and actually it's a full length insert inside the Light Strike kind of envelope. So that does give you a slightly more cushy ride. The boost foam is quite heavy by itself, so by doing that, they're trying to shed a little bit of weight and make the shoe feel stable. Drop-wise, you're looking at a classic sort of higher drop shoe from Adidas, so 8 millimeters, right, with a pretty high stack height. Adidas does use the Continental rubber on that shoe, and the Continental across the board on the Terrex line has been doing very, very, very good for traction and performance on a variety of conditions. From muddy conditions, where your 5-6 millimeters of lug depth is really going to work well, to conditions where you have more rocks and you need more friction, the Continental never disappoints. Regarding the fit in general, I'd say it's a pretty standard Adidas fit. If you use the older Adios, the older Bostons, it will really feel like home. The heel is relatively narrow, and the cutout of the ankle bone is quite deep. You do have a narrow to moderate instep with a pretty good wrap and a really good lock at the midfoot. And then the toe box is somewhat long, and width-wise, I'd say it's fairly average. Again, you know, if you have worn Adidas in the past, it feels very much like home and very much like some other kind of classics. The Agravic Ultra runs a half size big, so keep that in mind. I go down a half size, so I'm an 8.5 in the Ultra. I run typically a 9 or even a 9.5 in some brands that run short, so a half size down versus the Adios or versus other brands. And I was pretty surprised. At first, you notice right away that the shoe is quite stiff. That's the main thing on my first run. I was like, wow, this is a shoe that packs a lot of support on that platform. However, after 3 or 4 runs, the shoe does start to soften up, and you start to really feel the plush kind of boost insert inside that Light Strike, and it makes for a ride that's actually really responsive and very, very comfortable at the same time. Obviously, if you like really squishy shoes, it's not for you. But if you want to have a shoe that feels efficient, that feels like it's really moving forward, then that is an interesting option. I'd say with the shoe softening up a little bit, it does make it feel, you know, quite comfortable. It's not a shoe that you're going to run a bunch of non-technical trails on necessarily. Despite the stack height and the fact that under the hood it's pretty stiff, it's still a shoe that I thought felt quite stable. If it was a little softer than that, I think it'd make it quite unstable. But that firm underfoot feel does help if the trail gets a bit more technical or a little bit more complicated or uneven, where you really want to make sure you don't roll an ankle. I would compare the Agravic Ultra a lot to shoes like the Brooks Catamount, which also kind of has that plate, more responsive foam sort of philosophy, except this one, the Adidas, is a lot more capable when the trails get technical or when the terrain gets more slippery. Overall, fit-wise, like I said, I do have a relatively narrow foot, so I thought that the fit was quite good. If you have a very wide foot, again, it's a more traditional, typical toe box, so I would probably choose something that's a bit more roomy up front. You do really feel the rocker forward, and that's really interesting in a shoe that's got 8 millimeters of drop, that it feels like there's so little heel. Yes, there's a heel, but you don't feel it's got very little bevel, and also the shape of the shoe makes it feel very easy to land on the midfoot and roll to the toes very quickly. I could see how, I haven't done any long runs on that shoe, but based on 5 or 6 runs, I could see how this could be a really interesting tool for those who are aiming at very long kind of ultra distances and racing those sort of distances with as much efficiency as you can. I don't think it's a shoe that feels especially great on an hour to an hour 15 of running, or even 2 hours, because a lot of time you can get away with a much more sensitive, much more flexible shoe. But considering ultra distances and how much foot fatigue you will end up with, this is a very interesting option if you want to maximize efficiency later in the race. Definitely something that I would consider as part of a super interesting racing quiver. For us here, it's a shoe that I don't think is an alpine, capable shoe. It is, at the end of the day, mesh, right? So it will get cut up in scree, but the outsole and the midsole combo makes it, I think, a very, very good sort of classic or semi-technical 100-miler, 100 to 100-miler platform. It doesn't feel fast like a racer does, but you certainly feel that very interesting kind of roll forward that feels effortless, and that foot support. So yeah, Agravic Ultra from Adidas Terrex. There's 3 colors in the men's line, so watermelon green, there's a black and blue, and there's the original color, which is that gray, yellow, and black. And yeah, don't forget that they run a half-size short, $220 retail right now. A very interesting platform for those who are looking for more of a stiff, supportive shoe with a bit more stability and really a tool to tackle extra long distance racing. Check it out.